Velvet Shadow, Unraveled Tales Await. Subscribe. Her eyes didn't meet mine as she spoke. Stop harassing me. I'm not in the spirit for this. I merely suggested we grab dinner. We were both in the studio kitchen late evening. Everyone had departed an hour beforehand. Just a casual dinner, no other plans. She didn't even glance my way. I placed my keys on the counter without comment, began walking towards the door. That's when her tone altered. Hold up. Where are you headed? I paused. Turned around. She was now fixedly gazing at me, still clutching her phone, but her expression had transformed. Perhaps confusion, maybe fear. I uttered a single word. Home. She blinked, inquired as to my meaning. I remained silent, merely continued walking out. She called after me, yet I was already in the stairwell. That night I didn't return, not to our shared apartment, not to anything we had constructed together. For 3 months prior, I had stumbled upon a message on her laptop. It had been left open on the couch, and a notification surfaced while I sat there. The message wasn't from an unfamiliar figure, but from my business partner, the man with whom I had constructed this entire venture, the man who stood by me at our wedding, the man privy to every aspect of our lives due to his daily involvement. The message read, "I can't get last night out of my mind." I chose not to challenge her, nor question her, nor create a spectacle. What I required was time, not explanations. I instead initiated calls. That night I didn't rest. Instead, I remained in the living room with my laptop, the door shut. Her breaths were audible from the bedroom down the hall. I delved into every file we had shared, each drive we used, and every backup saved since our studio's inception 4 years prior. Financial records, client contracts, partnership agreements, I scrutinized them all. I wasn't hunting for further evidence. I had more than enough. I was seeking ammunition. By dawn, I had compiled a list. 3 potential investors who'd contacted us within the past year. Individuals we had declined because we preferred to maintain exclusivity. I dispatched an email to the first one before she stirred. The subject line indicated readiness to reconsider their proposal. Around 8, she entered the kitchen. Her hair was tied back and she carried a coffee mug. We followed our long-standing routine. She commented on my early wake-up and I acknowledged it. I closed my laptop after mentioning a client call, which she acknowledged with a smile before kissing my head. The scene suggested no alteration, but something was different. Over the next 8 weeks, I observed her subtly, not overtly or anxiously. Her increased laughter at jokes during meetings, her swift tucking away of her phone upon my arrival, and her extended work hours when he was editing alone in the back room caught my attention. I didn't bring up these observations. Instead, I focused on my calls. After 2 months, a formal offer for investment from a Boston fund appeared on my desk. They sought 40% of the company with full control over operations and a new management structure. I told them I would consider it before scheduling a partners meeting. The 3 of us discussed the issue of expansion. The discussion took place on a Thursday afternoon. I presented various documents, including revenue forecasts, market studies, and a plan to secure additional funding. He contended that we didn't require investors and were functioning well as we were. I argued that satisfactory wasn't sufficient any longer. We were leaving potential income behind. Then I placed the investment offer on the table. I had previously been negotiating with a Boston-based investment fund who desired 40% ownership and control over operations, along with a new management structure. Upon seeing this, he stiffened. She remained silent, merely observing. However, her hand briefly touched his wrist across the table, and I noticed. She soon withdrew it quickly, but not before I saw it. She inquired as to why I hadn't informed them initially about my intentions. What exactly was I up to? I replied that I was informing them now. They could continue in their roles as creative leaders, while I would retreat from operational matters. He stood up. One went to the window, told him I needed solitude to ponder, offered him 2 weeks. After that, I intended to proceed regardless. She seemed at me as if I had transformed into a stranger, gathered my documents, explained the conditions were non-negotiable, then departed. That night, she remained in the studio past midnight. I examined the security footage from home. She returned to our apartment around 1, said not a word, merely went to the bedroom and shut the door. 2, visited the window, informed him that I needed space to contemplate, set 2 weeks as a limit, regardless, planned to advance further afterwards. Her gaze suggested she was seeing me for the first time, collected my documents, spelled out the terms were fixed, exited. That night she stayed in the studio past midnight, reviewed the security records from home. She came back to our residence around 1, was silent, directly proceeded to the bedroom and closed the door. 3 stepped to the window, informed him I needed a moment to reflect, set 2 weeks as my boundary, moved on regardless afterwards. Her expression was as if she had just met me. Gathered my records, outlined the stipulations were immovable, departed. That night she lingered in the studio past midnight, reviewed the CCTV footage from home. She reappeared at our flat around 1, remained mute, straight away retreated to the bedroom and secured the door. 4, ventured to the window, communicated I required some time alone to consider things, fixed 2 weeks as a limit, regardless prepared to forge ahead subsequently. Her eyes conveyed she no longer recognized me, retrieved my documents, clarified the terms were set in stone, exited. That night she lingered at the studio past midnight, monitored the security logs from afar. She resurfaced at our residence around 1, uttered not a word. Instantly proceeded to the bedroom and locked the door. 5, headed to the window, shared I needed privacy to mull things over. Set 2 weeks as my period of solitude. Beyond that, aimed to progress regardless. She seemed puzzled like she had never seen me before, secured my papers, expressed the terms couldn't be altered, then left. That night she stayed at the studio past midnight, inspected the CCTV footage from home. She reappeared at our apartment around 1, remained quiet, straight away retreated to the bedroom and closed the door. She settled at the other end, keeping a distance so we didn't touch. She relayed that everyone at the studio was displeased, alleging I had taken them off guard. This, according to her, wasn't our usual way of making decisions. I inquired if she was merely repeating what he told her to say. Her expression shifted. She hesitated before mentioning his name, asking for clarification. I disclosed that I had read the message on her laptop 3 months prior. She froze, then claimed it was insignificant and I was misinterpreting. They were merely discussing a project, she argued. I inquired about the project that occupied her thoughts throughout the night. She remained silent. I rose, walked to the kitchen, poured myself water, my hands staying composed despite feelings crumbling slowly within me. She followed suit, stating we needed to address this issue. She believed I couldn't simply accuse her and depart. I placed the glass down, informed her I wasn't accusing but merely stating a truth. She asked what truth. I gazed at her, revealing that she had been deceiving me for months. Her eyes welled up, but she didn't weep. Instead, she stood there. She then declared she was returning to the studio, stating she required solitude to ponder. It was near 8 in the evening when I questioned if he would be present. She remained silent, merely gathering her keys and departing. I waited for 30 minutes before accessing the security app on my phone. I monitored the studio cameras, noticing 2 individuals within the rear editing suite with the door closed and dim lights. After 5 minutes, I shut off the app and contacted my attorney. She did not return home that night. Instead, she sent a message around midnight, expressing the need for mental clarity at a friend's residence. I chose not to inquire about the specific friend. The following morning, I arranged a meeting with my lawyer, presenting all relevant documents, including messages, security logs, and timestamps. My attorney posed the question of filing for divorce, but I deferred that decision until the deal was finalized. That afternoon, I dispatched an email to her, him, and our lawyer, formally announcing my intention to sell my shares, with the Boston fund ready for the transaction. The agreement will be finalized by the week's end. 20 minutes later, she phoned me, but I didn't answer. She tried again 3 more times. On the 4th attempt, I picked up. She was weeping, saying I was ruining everything and that it could be fixed if we just talked. I questioned whether she had been with him, to which she responded ambiguously, stating it wasn't as straightforward as that, implying it was a mistake. It had begun around 5 months ago at the wrap party for the Nike campaign when they had consumed too much alcohol. She admitted it happened only a few times after that. I informed her the papers would be ready by Friday and she could choose whether to sign or not. Either way, I was leaving. She pleaded with me not to go. 2 hours later, he arrived at my apartment, knocking persistently until I opened the door. He said we needed to discuss matters directly. I refused entry and told him I was being reasonable. I realized I was destroying a valuable situation. We could find a resolution if I merely controlled my feelings. I questioned if he believed sleeping with my spouse was resolving matters. His face turned red. He started explaining it wasn't as I thought, that emotions had simply developed, complicating things. He claimed he never intended to cause me harm. I told him I didn't care. After a minute, I closed the door, leaving him standing outside. For a while, I could hear his breath and footsteps down the hall. On Friday, I sold my 40% share to the Boston Fund. The proceeds would support me for years. She attempted to block the transaction, calling lawyers who said I was acting vindictively, undermining our joint business venture. However, the partnership agreement allowed me to sell, with 2 signatures required to prevent it. By Monday, new management had taken over. They swiftly reorganized everything and altered workflows. Hired a production coordinator who took charge without consulting anyone. He contacted me on Tuesday, accusing me of destroying everything. claiming the studio was collapsing, no longer what we had built. I informed him that it ceased to be ours when he started involving her. Then I blocked his number. A week later, she moved out, taking her belongings like clothes, books, and anniversary trip prints, leaving the rest behind. Upon my return, the apartment felt empty. Her keys were on the kitchen counter, no note or explanation. I picked them up, placed them in the drawer, closed it. That night I received a message from the junior editor who had previously texted me. He said 2 more employees had resigned, adding that the new management didn't understand their work culture, making it feel corporate and cold, implying he might also leave. I studied the message, then put down my phone. A week later, I learned she was living with him. Secured a location within the art district, a modest, temporary space as things developed. Investors contacted me once, proposing that I advise on certain heritage projects with specific clients seeking my services. I declined their offer, despite it being twice my previous income. Over 6 weeks, I steered clear of anything related to the studio, avoiding their social media and inquiries about their well-being from others. Then one day, an unknown number called. I almost didn't answer, but something compelled me to. It was him, his voice altered, weary. He requested a conversation, stating its urgency and assuring it wasn't about her. Upon inquiry, he disclosed the studio was being closed, investors withdrawing due to lost major contracts and unworkable margins. The equipment would be sold off, leaving him financially ruined. I inquired as to why he was informing me of this. He claimed that I was the only one who could repair it, so I left a message. I ended the call. He called back swiftly. I rejected his call and blocked the number too. However, the harm was already done. Now I realized it, the studio was lost. The 4-year labor of love, the client's reputation, team, all vanishing because the new management valued only figures. I tried to convince myself it wasn't my concern. I had walked away scot-free with money, freedom, and no ties to that place. But that night I couldn't rest. Thoughts about the junior editor and freelancers haunted me, as did those who trusted us because we genuinely cared. By morning, a decision was made. I contacted my lawyer, inquired about purchasing it back. He stated the investors wanted to sell, taking any reasonable offer just to depart. I submitted an offer lower than my sale price. They accepted within 48 hours. The papers were signed and money transferred. Acquired full control over the remnants. 3 weeks later, the studio resumed operations. I dispatched emails to former clients, informing them of a new leadership and a return to old practices. Most returned. I rehired dismissed staff, reinstated the junior editor, restructured work processes, but chose not to reinstate him or her. A month post-reopening, I received an email from her, expressing interest in returning due to hearing about my acquisition of the studio and missing the work and team. She did not mention missing me specifically. I read it thrice before deleting it. 2 months later, I got a call from a New York production company for a significant campaign with a hefty budget. They wanted me to travel for a pitch presentation. I arranged for the flight. The meeting went well. They appreciated my work and approach, mentioning they'd long been fans of the studio. Upon returning to the hotel, I walked past a coffee shop where I spotted a couple through the window. He was chuckling, she was leaned over the table. Their hands were about to touch. It seemed effortless, yet I continued walking. That night I sat in my hotel room, gazing at my phone. Her email, asking if there was a place for her, remained in the trash folder. I could retrieve it, respond, say something. My finger hovered over the screen. Then I switched to the calendar app instead, scheduled the follow-up meeting with the New York team, and noted revisions for their pitch. The next day, I boarded a plane back home. Upon landing, there was a voicemail from him. I'm unsure how he got my new number. He spoke about leaving town, moving to Portland, starting over. He also mentioned wanting to apologize before he left. I deleted the message without listening to it entirely. Over the weekend, I visited the studio, empty on Saturday morning. Only me and the equipment were there. I wandered through the space, past the edit suites, the conference room where we once planned campaigns. In the kitchen where I had discussed dinner that evening, everything seemed unchanged yet felt altered. I settled at my desk, opened my laptop, and began composing the New York proposal, working until nightfall. Upon leaving, I locked the door and drove home, prepared dinner, ate in solitude. The quietness echoed, yet it was mine. For several months afterward, I would frequently encounter her at a coffee shop nearby the old apartment while picking up an order. Our gazes met as she sat by the window, noticeably thinner, with shorter hair, a weariness etched on her face. She rose and approached me. I collected my coffee and exited swiftly. She called out my name. I halted, refused to turn around. She expressed a desire to converse for just 5 minutes. I looked back and informed her there was nothing left to discuss. She apologized, confessing a grave error, claiming she regretted it daily. I inquired about the man involved. She shook her head negatively. After losing the studio, he claimed it was all a sham. He admitted he hadn't been thinking clearly. I simply nodded. I wished her understanding would come soon. She didn't pursue me. I climbed into my car, sat for a moment with hands on the steering wheel. My phone signaled an incoming text from New York. Contract finalized, they wanted to begin next month. I responded, confirming readiness. I started the engine and headed back to the studio. The space was unchanged, yet felt alien. A new creative director had been hired, someone without a past or complications. The work was superior, better than before. I no longer stayed late, no more blending business with personal life. When the day ended, I left. Occasionally, I'd drive through the arts district, past the building where she moved in with him. I never slowed down, only kept driving. Now my phone rings frequently. New clients, larger campaigns. The studio is expanding again. My apartment remains silent. Nothing intermingled my possessions with others. No sudden noises startled me. I'm content without the turmoil. Occasionally, at late hours, memories of that message I discovered resurface. Can't seem to shake off thoughts about last night. Reminds me of the kitchen in the studio when she inquired about my destination. Home was my answer. Haven't communicated with her since the cafe encounter. The studio thrives. I flourish. Prepared dinner tonight, sat at the table, savoring each bite. Beyond the window, the city pulsed with life. People engrossed in their own journeys, all holding something. Completed my meal, cleaned the dish, extinguished the light. No deceptions, no hushed words, no messages on a foreign device. Just me, navigating the path I selected. Appreciation for your patience. Share your thoughts on this tale in the comments. Subscribe. Expect more authentic and concealed tales in the near future.